Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's educational topic is on cross-examination debates. What we are going to do, it's a group effort tonight. We have Dave acting as the government and Gerry acting as the opposition. We're going to role play a bit of a debate for you, cross-examination style. All of this is in preparation for our next debate, which will be a cross-exam debate. Cross-examination debate is a very different format than what we're used to. And what happens is basically the Prime Minister stands up and speaks, introduces the main arguments, defines the resolution for 5 minutes. At the end of that 5 minutes, the Prime Minister goes back to his chair but continues to stand, at which point the Leader of the Opposition comes over. Asks the Prime Minister 2 minutes of questions, giving ideally the Prime Minister time to answer. Asks for 2 minutes and then switches over and launches into his or her 5-minute presentation. At the end of that 5 minutes, so it's a 7-minute total, they go and stand at their seat, and the next debater, in this case it would be the member of the government, comes to the lectern and asks questions for 2 minutes. Ideally, questions based upon this presentation that they just heard, based upon the topic of the debate, but to try to unnerve the speaker. It's a tactical format. It's not just simply asking simple questions. It's the whole goal of a cross-examination debate is to use time up and to take them off, to knock some wind out of their arguments. And it's a 2-minute opportunity. It can be very strenuous, it can be very challenging, it can be very, very exciting, and the adrenaline certainly rushes. But the idea is the debater sits down, listens, writes down some questions instead of interrupting the presentation, holds it all up until they come here. And the Leader of the Opposition has 2 minutes to sum up their arguments, and then the Prime Minister has 2 minutes to sum up their arguments. So the summation period is the same as in any regular debate. It's just the style and the minutes of the questioning. Points are awarded when the questions are based on debating content. So in this case, when Dave speaks for a couple of minutes and Gerry asks him some questions, Gerry must ask based upon Dave's content. So if that's done properly and that's done well, then Gerry would gain some points. Dave would win points if he handles the questions well. That is, he answers them with a bit of flair, finesse, perhaps fact, but very obviously knocks down the question. Can lose points if you come up and ask a question, you just ramble on in a monologue and there's no real question hidden in your comments. Or if when asked a question you become completely flustered and you do blah, 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 you lose points there. That's not good. So it's a really interesting experience. It takes some practice to get it done right, but it can be really fun in the end, especially when you win the debate, as was the case for the last cross-exam. That's kind of fun when you win the debate. Or fun when you don't win the debate. The bells ring all the way through. When you have the 2 minutes of questioning, I know the bells are ringing. There will be a double bell when that 2 minute is done, and that's when the debaters, the speakers, know to switch into their regular speech. And at the end of the 5 minutes, there's another bell, and they know to sit down. So the goal is to be precise, to be accurate, to focus in on what the speaker said. The benefit is you don't have to focus on what both members of the opposition said if you're asking from the government side, just the speaker who spoke before you. And with that, we're going to preview, we're going to show you an example of this style of debate on the motion. Be it resolved that roundabouts are better than traffic lights. The debate is already in progress. We're going to tune into the closing minute of the Prime Minister's speech.
Okay, so I realize I'm almost out of time, so I'll use my last minute to quickly cover my third and final point. As traffic circles do not require any type of illuminated signals, it will no longer be required to install them at all. This will save money on the cost and installation and repair, as well as the cost of the energy required to continuously illuminate these signals 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Further, these signals are susceptible to damage and power outages caused by storms or any other numbers of problems. Without these signals, we are free for the architecture of a roundabout to regulate itself for free. My honorable colleague will expand upon this and other of my key arguments. In summary, the government's 3 main points are: 1, that roundabouts offer 40% fewer vehicle collisions, 80% fewer injuries, and 90% fewer serious injuries and fatalities. 2, these superior designs are already installed in widespread use in major European cities. And 3, illuminated signals are not required. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. To cross-examine the Prime Minister for 2 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of his own presentation, please welcome the Leader of the Opposition, Gerry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Prime Minister, I have a few questions for you. Firstly, are you aware that your second point is a logical fallacy?
Well, actually...
Excuse me, wait, let me finish my statement here. As a logical fallacy is defined, you appealed to popularity or the fact that many people do something. In this case, many people use roundabouts. Just because many people use roundabouts, that does not make it a valid point, sir.
That actually seemed to be a bit more of a statement than a question, but I will say that you can call it whatever you like. However, it is the contention of the government that since these superior designs are already in widespread use in many major European cities...
No, stop. As for your third point, you spoke about the cost saved by no longer being required to install traffic signals. Have you considered the immense cost involved in transforming the hundreds of thousands of traffic lights in Canada? How is your cost argument for cost benefits reasonable if you do not consider the refurbishment as part of the costs?
I would remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that tonight's resolution states that roundabouts are better than traffic lights, which means that it is not our burden to prove the fact that the implementation of traffic lights would be better. It is an inherent fact that the roundabouts themselves do not need to be powered. Therefore, they are better in this attribute.
Really? Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I somewhat doubt your statements, but we'll get to that later. I shall now rebut some of your arguments, and then I will give you some of my own statements, none of which I have, so I'm not going any further.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. So I'd like to point out a couple of points. One is Gerry's long-winded questions. Long-winded questions. So if you consider that you have 2 minutes to ask questions when you're up here, if you can take up 1 minute and 30 in asking questions, that does not give Dave very much time. And in asking the questions, Gerry was actually proving his point. So he did have a couple of questions in one question, which is probably not the best way of doing it, but in his second point, have you considered the immense cost involved in transforming the hundreds of thousands of traffic lights? It puts the seed in the adjudicator's mind and into the mind of the audience is that, oh my goodness, we've got lots of traffic lights in Canada. How much is it going to cost to retrofit? How are roundabouts possibly better than that? Just puts that element of, oh, what if, or causes doubt, raises some doubt onto the Prime Minister's argument. So there were long-winded arguments, questions, but he also cut off the Prime Minister. He cut off Dave twice when Dave was trying to answer. So in doing that, that's another strategical tactic that you can use. Because if they're going to start to prove their point and not prove your point, you want to cut them off and move on to the next. It's not always fair, but nothing's fair in love and debating and war. And I do encourage you to give it a shot because it is a fun debating style. Now we can apply. Thank you. Thank you.